A very good afternoon. My name's Dean Fairweather. I'm attached to the Colford Golf Academy and my PGA membership number is 0153127, and the purpose of this video is to do an explanation and demonstration on a chip shot. So what I'd like to do first is just give an overview on the chip shot and when it should be played. So a chip shot is used essentially between 1 yard off the green and up to 35 to 40 yards off the putting surface. And the reason you'll have to chip is because you can't putt. There'll be something in your environment stopping you from being able to putt. It could be a bunker, it could be some longer grass, it could be a water hazard. But there's something requiring you to get the ball up in the air to miss that, to be able to get onto the green. The first thing that we should consider is the different clubs, and for the purpose of this video I'm going to use a 7-iron, which would be 25% of its time in the air and 75% of his time on the ground. I'm going to use a 9-iron, which will be a lot more 50-50, and a sand wedge, which will be 75% of his time in the air and 25% of his time on the ground. The reason these trajectories change and these carry distances will change is because the loft on the golf club, the loft is the primary factor for the ball getting up into the air. And when you're considering a chip, often there'll be something that we have to think about, maybe where the flag is. So if we've got a pin at the back of a green and we've got plenty of space to work with, we might play the 7-iron where it will spend a lot more time on the ground and roll up to the pin. If we've got a lot closer, the flag's a lot closer and we haven't got the space to work with, we might use our sand wedge there, where we can get a higher trajectory and get that ball to stop a little bit quicker. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the pre-swing principles required to effectively play a good chip shot. First thing I'd like to consider is the club face aim. So the aim of the club face. And I'm going to use this alignment rod here. And what we're looking to do is we're looking to put the club face aim directly in line with the ball to target line. Now, what could happen with the aim is if I aim this club face to the left and I come back and I strike the golf ball in this same position, the face angle pointing to the left, that's where the golf ball will go. What we'll see is a reduction in dynamic loft, and also it can be very difficult to strike the ball on the centre of the club face when the club face is not brought back square to the target line, having the whole face to hit. What would also happen with the club face aim, if we point the club face to the right at the aim position and we return back in that position, the ball will actually, because the face angle is pointed to the right, that's where the golf ball will go. We'll see an increase in the loft on the shot, so the dynamic loft will be higher, and once again, like we talked about earlier, the centreness of strike can be compromised. The second element we need to consider for a chip shot is the grip of the golf club. So first thing I'm going to think about is actually gripping a little bit further down at the bottom of the grip. Now, what that's effectively doing is making the club a little bit shorter, and with a shorter club we're hoping to be able to control club speed a little bit more effectively, because that's a very important factor for a chip shot, to control the carry distances and the run out of the golf ball is the factor of the club head speed. So gripping down on the club, choking down, can help us. Next thing we've got to think about is how we're going to position our hands on the grip. Now, what we want to do is very simple really, is just if our palms face each other and we just clapped and then joined the hands together, that would be an effective chipping grip. Now, if I was to grip the club in what we call a strong position, so that would be my left hand for a right-handed golfer, around where I could see maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 knuckles, and then I gripped under the club. What that would do again is that would be effectively pointing that club face to the left with a strong grip. So when I come back, that's where the golf ball would go, and we'd once again see that reduction of dynamic loft. As we spoke about earlier, if the club face is pointing to the right from a weaker grip position, and a weaker grip would be where when I hold the club, I can see no knuckles out of my left eye, my left thumb is to the left of the grip, my right hand over, and that would allow the club face to point to the right when we strike the golf ball. So we'd see an increase in loft and the golf ball would go to the right. Next thing we need to consider now in the chip shot is our posture. So one of the important factors for creating the posture and being able to strike the ball in the centre of the club face is to get the distance right. If I was too far away from the golf ball, I was really stretching for it like I am here, it would actually be very difficult for me to strike the ball on the centre of the club face. Another thing we want to think about to get the right angle of attack when we're in the posture. So we need a slightly descending angle of attack, because that will allow us to hopefully strike the golf ball first and not the ground. So what we would do is we would put 60% of our weight on our left leg for a right-handed golfer and 40% on the trail. We'll just keep it in that position, and by doing that it will allow us to get the right angle of attack. The next thing to think about the posture is the effect it has on the club head speed. So in a chip shot, what we're looking to do is have a narrower foot stance. Okay, so it's going to be under shoulder width wide to be able to create the right amount of speed. Now if I had a wide stance and I was trying to play a chip shot, what might well happen is that I might be able to move around and actually using the legs as a power source and make it more difficult for me to control the club head speed and control the distance on the shots. Next thing I'd like us to consider is the ball position, where I'm going to position that ball. So for a chip shot, what I would like us to do, now we've got our foot stance just under shoulder width apart, we're going to position that golf ball in the middle of the foot stance. Now, if I put the ball too far back in my foot stance, what we can see now is the handle is leaning, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have more of a descending angle of attack, and I'm also going to de-loft the club face and take and reduce the dynamic loft as well, so the ball will come out a lot lower. One of the other things that maybe wants to be considered again is the centre of strike. If I've got the ball too far forward in my foot stance, and from there it's too easy for me to lean back, too shallow, and the club will hit the ground before the golf ball, make it difficult for me to strike the ball on the centre of the club face. Last but not least, when we're doing a chip shot, we need to consider the body alignment. So all I would want to do is use a golf club and get that club to point in line with my ball to target line. My toes will go straight behind the club. I'm looking for my toes, my feet, my knees, my hips and my shoulders all to be parallel to the ball to target line. That will allow me to have the right in-to-in swing path, and if my club face points in line with my swing path, I should have a fairly straight chip shot. Now, if I was going to aim too far to the right, for example, what will happen is now I'm aiming too far to the right of the ball to target line, my club would move too much on the inside and to the right, and my swing path too much that way. And if my club face lines up with my swing path, which is too much inside out, I'm going to hit that ball to the right. And vice versa. If I aim to the left too far, and my feet, my knees, my hips and my shoulders are all to the left of the ball to target line, and I just let the club follow the shoulder line with the square face to the swing path, the golf ball will go to the left. So the body alignment has a big factor on the club's direction of travel and swing path. Last but not least, we're going to consider some in-swing ideas of how to control the distance of a chip shot. So very simply, I've got my sand wedge here, and if I now swung, let's say I was going to hit the ball 10-yard carry with my sand wedge, I'll probably need to swing to here, to here. What we're trying to do is match the backswing up with the through swing, and if I now needed to carry that ball 30 yards, I would actually now extend the swing, go a little bit further back and the same distance through, but I'm not going to increase the club head speed. I want to keep that speed very much the same throughout the shot, and that will help me control the distance. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the three clubs I spoke about in the overview. So my 7-iron, chip and run, 25% of its time is going to be in the air, 75% on the ground. We're going to use a 9-iron, 50-50, and a sand wedge, 75% of its time in the air and 25% of the time on the ground. We've had to do this video inside today because the heavens opened when I went to do the video today, so I hope everything works out here. So, let's get the ball in the right place. So we're going to try the 7 iron now, and we should see this trajectory and shot. See, we had a perfectly good in-to-in swing with a square club face. That's why that chip shot went so straight. And we saw 25% of his time in the air and very much 75% on the ground. Now I'm going to use my 9 iron. 50-50 this should be. Got my pre-swing principles ready to go for the chip shot. 50-50. And now, last but not least, I'm going to use my sand wedge. 75% of its time in the air, 25% on the ground. The loft will help me do that. And that concludes the explanation demonstration of a chip shot.